So we have now moving to chapter 11. We have gone through the preparation for the conquest in chapters 1 through 5. We've also gone through the central campaign and the southern campaign. We just finished up the southern campaign last week. So now we're going to the northern campaign. So we're going to do the northern campaign and pretty much a summary statement. So we're going to go to the end of chapter 11 is what we're going to do for today. That is going to be where we end on today, is chapter 11. So just kind of a recap of chapter 10. We have a coalition of southern Canaan's kings quickly formed to attack Gibeon. Israel came to Gibeon's rescue, and the Lord used this occasion to rout those kings and give southern Canaan to Israel. The Lord rained large hailstones on Israel's enemies and answers Joshua's prayer to make the sun stand still. And after the Israelites prevailed, they continued fighting other southern cities and kingdoms. Now, I looked up and I wanted to know, so before I go up here, we'll go back. So here we are. And what we're looking at here, we're looking at the first part, the first, it has a little more than half of it. It says that Israel conquers the land. So we're looking at what land that we're conquering. So if we take a look at this map here, what we have is we have where their camp, their headquarters in Gilgal, right? That's their headquarters. So their headquarters is here. They've conquered Jericho. They've also conquered and fight Ai twice, right? They front Ai twice. So we got some other little here we got. So if we go to Gilgal, we're coming down and moving around. We have all these other little places that they fought. We talked about, let's see, we talked to Debar, we talked about Hebron, we talked about Eglon, the Shish. Let's see, what's the other one? Makeda, Lebna. So these are the ones we had talked about last week. So if we look at that, so this is when after the five kings had come together and want to try and destroy them. So we see what Israel done. So now we're looking at Israel and going that Israel is continuing on through this southern Canaan, and then they're going to actually go back and they're going to fight again. And this time when they're fighting the northern campaign. So the northern campaign. So I don't want to go too fast. That's what I don't want to do. But so if we look at the first 5 verses that it says, and it came to pass when Jabin, so Jabin is the king at this time, or the king of Hezrah. And so Hezrah. Okay, so Jabin basically is now heard about all again. Here we are again with this king hearing what Israel has done and what Joshua and Israel has done. So he too, just like those other 5 kings, he brings together a coalition. Is what he does. So he brings together a coalition of others so they can actually fight Israel. Okay. So if we look at the map, it tells us that when Jabin, the king of Hezrah, heard about Israel's victory in the south, he gathered a great alliance of northern armies to fight against Israel. So basically, that's where we're at and what we're looking at right here in these first 5 verses. Verse 4, and they went out, they and all their hosts with them, much people, even as the sand that is upon the seashore in multitude, with horses and chariots, very many. So they had horses and chariots. Remember that. Remember what they had. And when all these kings met together, they came and pitched together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. So they came together. And if we look here, so here is Hezrah. They came right about here. Let's see if you can see the cursor. They came right about here, came together to have their coalition about what they're going to do to Israel. Okay. Anybody, anything? because that my map is leaving. My map won't be here anymore.
So
After,
they
go
ain't
ahead.
learned nothing about trying to capture them by the water yet.
Apparently, they haven't learned anything. Really, to be perfectly honest with you, so really, they haven't learned anything about Israel and Joshua, and or about what makes them so great. What makes them continue to win these battles or these wars? What continue? What you know? What is it? What is it? Why do they continue to win? You know,
And they always have a lot of people.
always have a lot of people. Always have more than what is. Yes, truly, they always have more than what Israel has. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. You know, okay. So then, and we got verses 6 through 9. So what we have in verse 6 through 9 is we're looking at, and I'm just going to tell you. So this is what they call the encouragement of Joshua. So Joshua actually, again, here's God's promise to Joshua, or here God's telling Joshua again, don't worry, don't worry, I got you. So don't worry, got you. So in verse 6, he said, the Lord said to Joshua, be not afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time will I deliver them up all slain before Israel. Thou shalt pull or howl their horses and burn their chariots with fire. Okay. So now, remember, before they were killing. I had to turn my thing down just 1 minute. Okay, there it goes. So they were killing. Now we're gonna burn them. We're gonna burn them. So people need to. Looks like people need to leave God alone. Really, it really looks like they really do need to leave God alone, or leave Joshua and the Israelites alone. Okay. So God tells Joshua, don't be scared. I got you. I got you. Almost just thinking about this. I've had you this far. We sing now, we come this far by faith. I've had you all this time. Why would I leave you now? Why would I leave you now? So he gives Joshua the strategy to use to win the battle. He tells them to, if we read it again in verse 6, he tells them, guess what? To he tells them to hamstring their horses, but that don't even sound right, and burn their chariots. So that howl, or however you pronounce that, Hough, means to hamstring them and to burn their chariots. And I guess thinking about this, King Jabin, right? Jabin, I guess he figured, I got horses and I got chariots. They're gonna be scared because of what I have, but also looking at God telling them, look, don't keep the horse. He says, God, do not want don't keep the horses for yourselves. He wanted them to trust, have them trust in him and not a horse. So of course, Joshua does what God tells him to do. We're following what God tells him to do. So he cuts the hoofs off the horses and burns the chariots. And they chased their enemies and smote them until there were none left. So these people haven't learned yet. Okay, they haven't learned yet. We had a coalition of kings getting together in chapter 10. And what happened to those kings? Remember? They were stuck in the cave. Stuck in the cave. After they stuck in the cave, they took them out of the cave and then and tied them and broke stood on their necks and killed them. So I mean, okay, kings, y'all still want to play. You still want to play, right? Anybody got anything?
I guess it's just saying when God tells you he's gonna do something, no matter what all comes after you, you just gotta keep believing and doing what he's saying.
Okay. Agreed. You really do. You really do. So just gotta keep believing. And he had already promised them, basically promised them. He took them, he already promised them. And then looking at verses 10 through 15, and Joshua at that time turned back and took Hazar and smote the king thereof with the sword. For Hazar before time was the head of all these kingdoms. And they smote all the souls that were therein with the edge of the sword, ultimately, utterly destroying them. There was not any left to breathe. And he burnt Hazar with fire. And all the cities of those kings and all the kings of them did Joshua take and smote them with the edge of the sword, and he utterly destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded. But as for the cities that stood still in their strength, Israel burned none of them, save Hazar only, but did Joshua burn. And all the spoil of these cities and the cattle, the children of Israel took for a prey unto themselves. But every man they smote with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, neither left they any to breathe. As the Lord commanded Moses his servant, so did Moses command Joshua, and so did Joshua. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. So if we look at verse 10, it is basically saying that Joshua personally slayed the king of Hazor and burned him. So Joshua personally did it. Okay. He personally did that. So then it says, what did we say? They killed him till none were left to breathe. Left they any to breathe. Ain't that something how they said? Just say they killed them all, but you left none. Nothing left that breathed. Nothing. So it says Hazor was the only city Joshua burned out of all in the north he destroyed. So they took the cattle. They took the loot. And then just saying, if we look here, Moses did what he was commanded to do. He told Joshua what he commanded Joshua, and Joshua did just what was commanded. So they all just did. So Joshua, I read something that said Joshua was like Moses 2.0. So Joshua Lord commanded Moses to do. Moses then said Joshua, and everything was done. Questions, comments, anything anybody had read?
Did Joshua's army do all this themselves, or did God intervene and help them on this in this battle? Did they kind of do it under God's direction, but right. They used their own strength and did all the destroying? God,
go ahead.
And God didn't have to intervene, like he did with the hailstorm and things like that.
I don't think he intervened that way, but I think he still intervened, because again, he told them in the beginning, if we read the beginning, he told them that he would be there with them, and he promised them. So I think he was like with all the others. I think he was there. I was gonna ask. Somebody go ahead. I think he was there and present and that's my thought. I don't think he, I don't think he did like the hailstone stones and that stuff. No, I think he intervened that way. I think he intervened.
Why did he just burn? Was it Hazor that he burned only?
Well, you mean Joshua? Joshua burned yes. Joshua did. Yes. He burned Hazor only. Yeah.
Was that not the king that tried to get everybody together?
Right. It was actually, the king is actually Jabin. He's the king of Hazor.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Jabin. He's the king of Hazor.
And another simple man. Now this is a message to y'all. Stop trying to get together.
So Joshua actually smote that king personally. So he smote the king personally. I mean, we can speculate why he personally, you know, and we can speculate and say, you know, because he was the one that brought them together, brought the coalition together. I don't know that. Couldn't find I couldn't find where, but it says he personally slayed that king and out of Hazar, and then they burnt Hazar, the city, with fire. Any other thoughts or questions?
Even though God had commanded Joshua to, go into Canaan because Canaan was the promised land,
Right.
the people still had to do something, and then their blessings was through the spoils of all these cities that they conquered.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to do something. I mean, they couldn't, just walk in there and just the promised land just turned over to them. No, they had to fight for it and rely on God's strength
Right.
to gain this promised land and then get all the spoils, the cattle and everything that those other people had. They
Right.
just came in and wiped them out and just took all their stuff.
Mm-hmm. But
that was their blessing.
Agreed. That truly was their blessing. And that was their blessing for following through to and being obedient to what he told them to do. So, or what, he told Joshua. This time we didn't get specifically what Joshua had to, or their instructions. It just told us, what verse it just told us that he, sorry, you all, just told us that, sorry. It just told us that God told him and gave him a strategy or told him what to, but that's all we got. And God told him that, yes, I'm going to deliver you. I'm still going to deliver you out of, but he just didn't tell us what he needed to do or what they needed to do to win this battle. We didn't get that this time. In previous ones, we kind of got the instructions, or we kind of got where Joshua said something like in verse 10, Joshua asked him, or God did the hailstones, and then Joshua asked God to let the sun stand still. We didn't get this time. All we know is that they killed everybody, and they took and had the cattle and whatever those other possessions were. We didn't get those specific instructions this time that what was given to them. Okay. Anybody else? So if we look at verses 16 through 19, so Joshua took all the land, the hills and all the southern country, and all the land of Goshen, and the valley and the plain, and the mountain of Israel, and the valley of the same, even from the Mount Halak that goeth up to Sur, even unto Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon, unto Mount Hermon, and all these kings he took and smote them and slew them. Joshua made war a long time with all these kings. There was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel, save the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon, and all other they took in battle. So if we look at it, the only nations, or the only ones, or the inhabitants that were saved were the Hivites and the Gibeonites. Those are the only two tribes, because we know that the Gibeonites actually made that treaty, right, with them. So those were the only two tribes that had, and the Hivites that made peace with them. So Joshua had conquered all this land. He had conquered all of this. Okay.
Now, how big was Canaan? Because all these cities were in Canaan, right?
Right. All this was around Canaan. Yes, it was. I'd have to look that up. I didn't look. That's one I didn't look up. That's one I did not look at.
I
But
think
it
I
had
was reading that it was all part of the promised land that it gave them. And the biggest piece was that they were all conquered because of their idolatry.
okay.
On that map that you showed,
Yeah,
that was all of Canaan right there.
we can go back a minute. Let me see which one.
All I know is it was all of the what you call it,
This doesn't really, it doesn't
the
say it as
land that
Canaan
he
that,
promised them.
right. It doesn't really say it as Canaan that way, but I'm looking at my other map. I got another map sitting right here next to me. Let's see. But and
Is
looking
the
at the other map, I think it is. It was all of that was all of Canaan.
is the Jordan River on the map?
Yes. This one
And
isn't
so
this one isn't showing it, but yes, I'm looking at another one and it's showing it
and they conquered cities on both sides of the Jordan, or
on both
just on both
sides.
sides.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
What is Canaan now in today?
Palestine.
Palestine.
That's what I was just looking up. So I just looked it up and just see the size move. Let me see. It said it was 140 miles by 40. It's an area smaller than the state of New Jersey.
All those cities and all those kings and all those people.
Yep.
Is that
Wow.
just dealing with one of the cities?
What do you mean?
Because I think I was reading too that it's like Israel, like you said, Palestine, Israel. They named 4 different countries, which would have been that whole Middle East kind of.
Could have been. But I'm just reading what it says. But if you look at it, yes. So it looks like you have, if you look at it now, if I'm looking at it now, it was the kingdom of Israel. So we're looking at that part. But around those, because that's what it looks like today. That's today. Canaan today. Now, you're gonna make me get my map out and have it. But that's that. I don't want to see that.
So Jericho was just the gateway to everything.
It's a way to look at it. Or the start of everything. Because
Right.
this so if we look right here, this is the Jordan, right here.
Right.
That's the Jordan.
Oh, okay.
That's the Jordan. And we
conquered the southern, then he went and conquered the northern. And then if you look at a traditional map, well, one that we have today, you're going to see the whole Middle East side of that.
So, because if you look here, because this is, if we look at this map, here they are right here. Excuse me.
So it's a big piece. It's a big piece. It's a pretty big piece. They say the size of New Jersey, but that might have just been the northern campaign, and depending on which map they use, because I know depending on which map they use, Africa is out of proportion, and so are the rest of the states.
They said 140 miles, right? That
140 miles by 40. Yep.
It's still a long way to walk, though.
Yeah.
Because if Chicago is 90, add on 50 to Chicago, where are you? Peoria? I don't know, somewhere up in there.
Okay. I guess it's kind of big, but not too big.
Yeah, 40 would be halfway to Madison. So you go from here to halfway to Madison, back up that, and then back. So that's a pretty big area.
And they didn't have any horses?
Don't look like they had anything.
They just marched, huh?
So it says, okay, so something else I have that says, what does the map of promised land look like? The territory was about 60,000 square miles, 144 miles in length from the north to the south, 40 miles across the southern border, and 20 miles, just a minute, and 20 miles, of course, you know, you're just gonna say, go take you all over the place. Oh man. Let me see. Here it is. And 20 miles along the northern border. So the territory was 60,000 square miles, 144 miles in length from north to the south, 40 miles across the southern border, and 20 miles across the northern border. It says Canaan was a smaller portion of the much larger region that was originally promised to Abraham. Okay. That's the size they're saying. Okay. I gotta put this, I'll put this map on, find this map, make sure I put this map on for us next time. So we'll have that map. I'll put a map up. So I'll put the map so we can see the maps for sure. Go back. You history buffs. So verse 20. So verse 20 tells us, for it was of the Lord to harden their hearts, that they should come against Israel in battle, that he might destroy them utterly, and they might have no favor, but the Lord destroy them as the Lord commanded Moses. So it's just going back and saying what actually happened, you know, with them. They just coming after Israel, coming after them, thinking they're gonna take them. You know,
And it was their hate because of God. They didn't, it says here, Canaan hated God and despised his people. Well, it's almost, and you that's another theme in the Bible. Your idolatry and your hate of God gonna get you in trouble. And it's kind of coincidence, not coincidental, but you know, I always tell you, y'all follow each other and what y'all do. But like last night, Bishop Hines was teaching on a kind of the same sort of thing in a way, but not out of Canaan. But he was just talking about following God. He was talking about doing what God say do. And because people weren't doing it, how things were being punished. So it's just the same sort of thing that's going on here.
So, and another thing is that, you know, when I first started reading Joshua, I was kind of like feeling sorry for all these people that got killed. But, you know, after you kind of, you know, keep reading it, God tells you that, you know, these people did have a chance and, you know, to hear the word of God, but they refused to hear the word of God, or, you know, and ultimately, you know, God hardened their hearts like he did Pharaoh, you know.
Right.
And, you know, after Pharaoh said, you know, he's going to let the people go, then he changed his mind because he just refused to believe in God. And like us today, you know, you try to witness to people and you try to tell people, you know, you need to have a closer walk with, you know, God. And they just, some people just refuse to hear it. And ultimately, you know, their hearts could be hardened.
Right.
And they never, you know, but God would want everybody to be saved, you know, so he gives people ample time, like a really long time, you know, like the Israelites, they were in the wilderness. Was it 400 years or were they under slave for 400 years?
They were under slavery for 400 years. But that's a wilderness. That's a wilderness. We were too. That's a wilderness. You know, that is a wilderness in within itself. That is a wilderness. But that just going by what you all just said. So that last point says, whenever God calls us out of places or situations, it behooves us to move speedily, be obedient, and separate ourselves that we may be a people set apart for his use. So, I mean, think about what Israel did. Yes, that is basically what they did. And the Canaanites and all these others, you know, didn't join in. The only ones who, as we say, the Hivites and the Gibeonites, you know, just thinking about it. Verses 21 through 23. And at that time came Joshua and called off the Amalekites from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debar, from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah, and from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. There was none of the Anakims left in the land of the children of Israel, only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod there remained. So Joshua was taking the land. He's taking it. As I said, the Anakims had giants, gigantic people there. Joshua destroyed them.
It's interesting that they only left a few in Gaza and Ashdod, and I can't remember the Bible where they appeared later, but it's like a repeat of who killed David. Did David come after this? No. So David killed, then he killed the giants, and then there's a few giants left to be killed in another section. Okay. And the gigantic people again were destroyed. They still the same people who think they rule everything, they size and their structure, and yet and still not believing in God got you killed.
Yeah. Well, just thinking about it too. I mean, as that song Donna Lawrence says, giants do fall. The bigger they are. So
the harder they go, boom.
You're right. So giants do fall. So they're not, we're gonna be subject to God one way or the other. We're gonna be. We gotta be. So in looking at this in verse 23. So Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord said unto Moses, and Joshua gave it for an inheritance unto Israel according to their divisions by their tribes, and the land rested from war. So at this time, war is all done. War is all done now. We are the war of Canaan, as he said, is over. It is finally over. It is. So then Joshua actually gives the tribes. So here's our 12 tribes are coming in and giving them their portions and dividing it up their land.
Which explains why the land had to be so big.
Right. So that time. Yeah. So if we look at this, Joshua fought 13 battles in this time. Somebody asked, or we were thinking about, someone asked, how long did this last? It lasts between 6, depends on what version you use. It says between 6 and 8 or 6 and 7 years was the time frame of all these battles. And of all the battles that he fought, or that they fought, they only lost one. And which one was that?
Ai.
Yep. They lost Ai. Yep. So that was the one that they lost, is the Ai. Okay. And as our little saying has said, well done, thy good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of the Lord. I'm sure they were joyful. I'm sure. Think about this. You warned for fighting with somebody for 6 to 7 years. You promised this land. I'm promised this land, and I'm promised this my promise, but I gotta fight. To have my land.
That, I guess, they also liken this unto Jesus, like how he gave us our inheritance, that we have here on earth. And of course, we have inheritance in heaven, which we have not received yet, but
right.
It kind of like Jesus gave our inheritance here. We still, although we're here on earth, we still have many blessings that are bestowed upon us, just by being here every day. And Joshua, that was the inheritance for the Israelites, was all the spoiled and the land. So they were just, getting all their inheritance now. Before, when they came out of Egypt, they didn't really have nothing. And then, in the wilderness, they didn't have anything. And now they got all this, they got all this stuff. They just inherit it, It's just like, your parents inherited you certain things, you don't get it until a certain time.
Yeah. Yes. So as like the second bullet saying, though, there is a time. So now actually for them, this is their time of rest. So that time will come for the remaining nations to be subdued. But guess what? Right now, can you just imagine? I know they are tired after 6-7 years of doing this. And I had to come through this and fight this country and fight that country. I'm sure they are ready for a rest. I'm sure they are. Let us rest a little bit, So,
why do you tell them that? Community.
So, what did she say?
Why didn't you tell them about what was happening with me?
She on the phone. So just that was that verse. So I think that was it for chapter 11. Okay.
Here's my question.
Yes, ma'am.
He went through and he was smoking and they burnt everything. It was this burning to get rid of the negative part of the city so they can build up into his word, you think? Because you think about they burnt everything, now they got to clean up everything and then they got to rebuild. But what they rebuilding with if they burnt everything?
That's a good question.
So was that signifying we gonna take everybody that hated me, we gonna burn everything about them, and then those that love me and respect me can build?
That's a good question.
Didn't we talk about last week how the people that got together and deceived him, he didn't necessarily kill them, but they became slaves?
Right, but that was a chapter 9. But that's a good thought. That is a good thought.
So wouldn't they have to be the workers?
No, but remember, they killed everybody here again,
except for the Gibeonite. Now those people, not the Gibeonites, but the 5 that came together.
Right.
They kept some of them people, didn't they, and made them slaves.
Right, but right, and so maybe they were the ones that built up the land. I don't know.
But what did they build up with?
Right.
What were the resources if they burnt everything?
They still have water and clay, like they did at the beginning of the Bible.
I think they only burned that one place, right?
Right now, it looks like they've only burned. No, I thought they burned somewhere else in chapter. Didn't they burn in chapter 6 or somewhere earlier? I thought.
Yeah.
Just thinking back, or they did somewhere else. They put them on fire, didn't they? I have to look back again.
Well, maybe they had to purge the land, sometime, because when God come back, he gonna come back with fire, right?
So he's gonna purge. Well, I would assume it's a purging.
But you have to remember too, he gave them a place of rest during all those battles. Remember, they had like a home base on the first part when they covered the southern conquest. There was a place of rest.
Pastor, there's a question on the floor.
I'm sure there's something on the northern side. Here we go.
There's a question on the floor. You all, Pastor just came in. So in chapter 11, and they burned Hazar, right? They burned up Hazar. So here is the question: what did they have to rebuild it with?
To rebuild Hazar with? All of the. Remember, they took spoil from a lot of other places.
Okay.
They had plenty. They didn't burn everything. They only got rid of completely the areas that God said they would be wiped out. So they still had plenty to use to rebuild. They had plenty of spoil. Remember, they've been doing this campaign for a long time.
Okay, so they rebuild, but with what? Okay, so you're saying whatever they took from the other places, that's what they had to rebuild with.
They had plenty. Israel Hebrew children, they had five.
So he had them destroy the places where there's idolatry going on in the height.
He was going to wipe out. That's why Saul ended up in the Samuel 15. That's why Saul ended up losing his kingship, because if God said wipe it out,
Right.
that's what he wanted, but he didn't wipe out every.
Okay.
Just the places that he promised that he would wipe out completely.
Okay. Okay.
There's
so they had plenty from just doing that.
From all the other spoils.
So from everywhere else that they had gathered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Remember, they'd taken over Jericho. Jericho
Right.
was the largest city, and had Jericho was fortified. Jericho was a wealthy place.
Right.
In Canaan. So they had plenty of materials. They had plenty of everything they needed.
Okay. All right. There's our answer. There's our answer. Okay.
Well, that would make sense with the pattern of Moses.
Mm-hmm.
He took everything from there.
Mm-hmm. They did. Egypt gave them everything they needed for those years in the wilderness.
So a question was also on the floor earlier about this time when when they fought. God gave instructions, but he didn't say to us exactly what those instructions were, right?
Right.
He gave the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So was God with them, and did he do something different, or what do we? There's nothing that says what he did, though, right?
Yeah, he left it in the air. So if we are to assume, based on God's history, we assume that he confused them and did what he done in other campaigns.
Okay.
But
so he was still present, but he just didn't say what the strategy was. No. He just told him that I'm going to deliver you. You just basically, this victory is yours, no matter, right? No matter exactly. What. Okay.
The 13th verse. Okay. Explains it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. But as for the cities that stood still in their strength, Israel burned none of them, save Hazar only, that did Joshua burn. Okay. Right. Okay.
But he still took them over.
Right. Okay.
They stood still in their strength, but he still took them over.
Okay.
Joshua and Israel, they ruled that entire area.
Okay. So, any other questions?
Do you know how long the rest is, or do we have to just go finish the rest of the chapter? They rested after they did all this conquering, and they were able to enjoy their inheritance. How long did that last?
I think we're gonna have to read and see how long they rested.
Right? Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're not sure?
No, I'm not sure how long they rested.
Let's see if it tells us. Right. See if it actually tells us. So.
How far did you get through the chapter?
We're chapter 11. We're done.
You got through it?
Was there something you want to add or say?
No, I just.
You sure?
I'm sure. But I don't know. That's a great question. I'm going to find out.
Okay.
I will find out how long they rested. I don't think they rested for long. Okay.
Because it said I found out that this took place over depends on what you read, 6 to almost 8 years, or 6 to 7 years. It was between 6. So this
was
time
an ongoing campaign.
But that's just they needed to rest then.
Yeah, they did.
Because in that time frame for there's 13 different battles. That was 13 battles.
And God was making sure that they, you can't rest until you've taken care of the north, south, east, and west. Mm-hmm. And so God was making sure that no one was coming from any area, so they were able to set up camp and to watch from every direction. Mm-hmm. which is a part of the reason, and I'm not trying to make this political, but a part of the reason why Ukraine and Russia are at war now. If the United Nations or that group that works together, and I've forgotten the name of it, if they were to be able to get Ukraine mm-hmm. to join them, the group that the United States belonged to, Russia knew then that they would be completely surrounded. The United States is already in Poland, and they're in some of those other areas, and they did not want this. They did not want Ukraine to join mm-hmm. that group, NAFTA. or whatever was created from NAFTA. They didn't want Ukraine to join it because then Russia would have known then that they were surrounded in every area. So they decided to go into Ukraine to try to take it over, to make sure that other countries don't get right at their border, don't get right on their border. Well, now Israel, as of this 11th chapter, they've completely taken over all of the regions, all the regions. So whoever comes from whatever region, they have companies there. They're staged now, so they can see any attack from any direction and be prepared.
So is their headquarters still Gilgal? That's what we have to find out.
I believe it is.
Still have to find out, okay? If their headquarters is Gilgal. All right. Any other questions? Thank you all for a lively discussion.
Amen.
On Joshua chapter 11. So next week we'll do Joshua chapter 12. Well, I keep saying, let's see. We'll do read 12 and 13. And so we'll see where we get. Okay. We'll see where we'll talk a little bit. I don't know, faster. I don't know what we have to do. But I just want you all to know, Pastor is asking that you have some grape juice, cranberry juice, or some kind of cracker or a piece of bread on Sunday. He wants to do communion on Sunday. So if you would please get your oyster crackers, or if you have
or whatever
crackers, bread. Yep. Let others know that Pastor, I will make sure that I put it in when I send the information about service. I will put it there to remind people, but just let everybody know, talk to whoever you talk to, please let them know that on Sunday, Pastor wants to have communion. We'll have communion.
Is that all right?
That's all right.
Amen.
All right. All right. Nothing else. That being all, ain't that what we used to say? Ain't that what we used to say? That being all.
That's what we used to
say. All right. We love you all.
We love you all.
Love you.
All right. We will see you on Sunday. Don't forget your wine, not the wine, crackers and juice. Crackers and your Morgan David. No, I'm just kidding.
You said wine. I'm going with what you said. I'm going with what you said, Dr. Marbley.
You don't, because I don't want nobody chugging it, So have your juice and crackers.
And your crackers.
On Sunday.
You only gonna have a little cup.
Right. That's all they need. Just to swallow.
And we'll do a special message about communion.
All right.
Amen. Okay. Special message about communion.
Okay.
All right.
On Sunday morning.
All right.
All right. Love y'all.
Love y'all. All right.
Okay.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Night.